Alright guys, so I'm going to show you guys how to do a compression test on your RCF. It looks like the driver's side is pretty easy to get to. There's easy access to all of the coils, but the passenger side is going to be a little tricky because those back cylinders are going to be a little harder to get to. So I got this compression tester at Harbor Freight. My stepdad has one, but I didn't want to drive over there to get it. These are 50 bucks, so I just bought my own. And once you find out which plug your card takes, you just put this in there. This is a little extender for when you can't reach, right? We're not going to be able to use this on my car, I don't think. But what we can do is use one of these flex ones, right? So you thread it in, and then you add the gauge side on there. And then what you do is you give the car a couple cranks, 6 to 8, and then you record the pressure being built. And you want a really decent high initial pressure when you first crank it, and then it'll build slightly higher for the overall max. If it starts off kind of low and then it gets even lower as you crank it, then you have a bad cylinder, maybe a worn out ring or some kind of issue in there. My car's got 25,000 miles on it, so I don't anticipate any issues. She's running healthy, but I want to make sure that my compression is good before I boost. So here we are. Real quick, so the bolt that holds on to the coil is a 10mm bolt, so you're gonna need that. And what I'm using is this little swivel extension. And then once I thread it out a couple times, then I take it out by hand so I don't drop the bolt down there. And just in case, I have a little magnet so that I can grab it and not drop anything down there. So I'm using my little baby compressor so I can blow some air in the area before I take the spark plug out. I don't know if you guys heard what I just said. I'm trying to see in there. So it's not always guaranteed to be clean in there, even though it does have a seal right here. So, but there was a lot of dirt around this, so when you remove it, dirt drops into the spark plug area. And if you take the spark plug without blowing that area out, that shit's gonna drop right into your cylinder. So be careful who you let do your spark plugs, because if you go to a cheap mechanic, he might not give a crap. He might just take your stuff out, swap it, and then you end up with debris inside of your engine, just gouging your cylinder walls. So let's get this little guy in here, blow this shit out. All right, so the socket for the spark plug is gonna be a 5/8, and I have a new one on order because I don't have the rubber grommet inside that holds the spark plug. So right now I'm having to use this magnet to be able to get it out, which works fine. The tip's magnetized, right? So, all right, so here's our first spark plug. See, so these have never been changed on my car. Looks like the tip's still good. Just gonna clean them out a little bit, and then put some anti-seize on the threads before I put them back in. These will all get swapped out anyway. All right, in preparation for this test, what you want to do is you want to remove the 10mm bolts that hold on the coils on the cylinders that you plan on testing. Right now for this video, I'm only doing these two. The other ones are harder to get to, and that'll just make a long video, but get a little notebook, write down your compression or record it. The other thing you got to do is loosen up the elbow so that you can you're gonna want to prop the butterfly open for the throttle after you warm up the car. So right now, We're making sure that the coils are still seated and the coils are still connected. We're gonna run the car until it's up to temperature. Once it's up to temperature, you shut it off, and then you gotta work pretty quick. So after we shut it off, we're gonna pull the fuses for the fuel pump and for the coils. And that way we do a dry test on this. We don't want any fuel squirting in there. And we don't want the coils on. We just want it to turn over and build compression in there. And to do that, the throttle body has to be fully open to get the max airflow in there. Otherwise, you're not gonna get accurate reading. So that's the preparation for right now. So remember, take the bolts off of the coil packs for all of them, preferably, and then loosen up your intake so you can pull it off pretty easy. This thing's a pain in the ass to take off, but it's loose. I'm gonna work it a little bit more, and but first I'm gonna warm up the car, and then we'll work after that. All right, so I'm just gonna pull the fuel pump fuse, which I already have the puller on there, and I'll show you guys on here on the diagram where it is. I don't think it's a big deal if the spark plugs are igniting, as long as there's no fuel in there. So there it is. It's the first 30 amp. There's 2 of them on there. The other one is, I don't know what that is. So, cool. Let's warm up the car, and then we'll pull the fuse and get going. All right, so I have some needle noses just sitting on there, opening the throttle. And I have my compression tester plugged in. The car's warmed up, and I have my fuse pulled out for the fuel pump, so let's try this. All right, once you have your reading, so this one's right at 210, it looks like. You're gonna press this little relief valve and then move on to the next one. All right, we're ready for the next one. At 150. So it looks like my needle noses didn't open the throttle all the way earlier. They kind of slipped out a little bit. And so I got a lower initial, but it looks like it's right on par with the last one. So I'm just cranking it a couple times just to make sure, but you're supposed to do about 8 cranks. So far this looks great. All right guys, just so you know, before you start doing a full compression test, you're gonna need some extensions, especially the little universal ones that let you get in those really hard to reach spots. You're gonna have to remove the battery for the spark plug that's all the way by the passenger side. shut off the garage real quick. You're gonna have to have a lot of patience, wear some gloves, and try not to burn yourself, try not to drop any bolts inside of the engine bay. But here's my suggestion. The first 2 cylinders you can do really easy, and honestly, if one of those fails, you don't have to do the rest. You know that there's an issue with your engine. If they're good, you continue going until you get them all sorted out. You get a nice little track record. My advice is to keep track of that, and every time you change your spark plugs, especially if you're running a supercharger, make sure you do another compression test and keep track of whether it's dropping or maybe you wore out one of your seals at some point and the engine needs to be rebuilt. Then what you can do is start planning for it instead of waiting for it to fail and then you don't have a car. So when you plan for it, I mean, obviously you can drive a little, you can start driving without building boost if you want, if you need the car, if it's your daily. If it's not, just put it away. But at 210 pounds, man, that's really good in compression. The first test that I did, I'm gonna tell you guys, I got about 155 pounds of compression. And the reason why is because I didn't have my throttle open. And then also the issue is I didn't pull the fuse for the fuel pump. So it was spraying fuel in there, and it wasn't getting enough air. So of course it's a lot of issues, and you're not going to get an accurate reading of a dry compression test. So just make sure you follow along. I ended up having to dig into the forums, and I found the correct way of doing it from somebody that did it on an ISF. And the only issue is that there's no videos of anybody doing this on RCF, so I just wanted to make sure I got something out there for you guys, because it's a struggle out there. I think there's a couple of good guys out there on YouTube. I'll throw their names out here on the bottom that I've learned some stuff from working on the RCFs. I think Juan Bros is probably the one that has the most content out there on just ripping apart his car. But I'm trying to get some higher level content on here, and one of the things that I want to do is start bringing you guys some content that's more relevant to what people want to do to their cars. So some custom things. I got some plans for a custom intake. I'm gonna valve my own NVIDIA exhaust, and I already have the parts on their way. The other thing I'm doing is the ethanol analyzers, so I can blend comfortable. So right now I blend by measuring, and it's a pain in the butt because you always have to blend to a full tank. And if you guys are going to be out there doing pulls, you don't want to be doing a pull on a full tank if you're racing somebody that's very close to your horsepower range and gear ratio, right? So especially if you're racing another F, it's going to be so close that every little bit helps. So my recommendation, I know I keep saying that, but this is just stuff that this is all good info that helps out, right? Just coming to the store to get some meat. I'm starving, you guys. I have not ate, and I was trying to get a few cylinders done for this video before I came to the store. Another thing before I leave is there is going to be a check engine light on your car from unplugging shit and trying to run it. So I'm just going to run the car this way for a little bit, see if it naturally turns off. But if you have a ODB2 scanner, just go ahead and clear it. I don't like clearing it because the computer goes through a whole relearn process on how you're driving and all that. And right now I like the way the car's running, so I don't want to mess with it. But if it doesn't go away, I'm just gonna clear it. And all right, guys, drop a comment, like, subscribe. There's a lot of good stuff coming for the F, and I'm also doing some work on my buddy's F from the crew. So we're gonna get some ISF content, some RCF content, and maybe a couple other things here and there.